From the very first moment he saw her walking out of the cafe that rainy afternoon, something inside Arham shifted, something quiet, something unnamed, something that made him listen to the sound of his own heartbeat for the first time in years. Life had not been gentle to him these days. He was 28, recently laid off from the job he had given his soul to, and carrying the weight of family expectations that pressed down on him like the gray sky above. Yet, when he saw her Ayla balancing 2 paper bags and giving a polite nod to the cashier as she stepped out into the drizzle, he felt a strange flicker of light travel through the darkness he had been living in. He didn't know why that moment mattered. He didn't even know her name then, but he remembered how she had tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear and how her tired eyes still managed to hold warmth. And something deep inside him whispered that life was offering him a new beginning. If you believe kindness and second chances still matter in this world, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this continue. As days passed, he began noticing her more often, sometimes at the grocery store, comparing prices with a careful seriousness in her eyes, sometimes waiting for the bus with a little girl leaning sleepily against her shoulder, sometimes picking up bread from the small stall near the square where Arham often sat with his notebook, pretending to write but secretly hoping she would walk by. There was something about her presence that calmed him. She carried herself with quiet strength, and even though her clothes were simple and her hair sometimes looked hastily tied, she had a dignity about her that made the world around her feel softer. Eventually, he gathered enough courage to approach her. He thought she might appreciate a simple conversation, maybe a smile, maybe someone acknowledging her existence in a busy world that swallowed people whole. His heart hammered inside his chest as he stepped near her at the bus stop, tried to greet her with a warmth he hoped didn't sound foolish. But the moment he opened his mouth, she stiffened. Her face went pale, and she took a small step back as though bracing herself for disappointment she had learned to expect. Before he could say anything meaningful, she apologized quickly, almost desperately, and hurried away. That night, Arham lay awake feeling foolish, rejected, and confused as to why someone who carried such gentleness in her eyes would react like that. He told himself it didn't matter. He told himself she must not be interested and that he should move on. But something inside him didn't settle. He wasn't hurt because she had pushed him away. He was hurt because her reaction had been filled with fear, not dismissal. It felt as though she wasn't running from him. She was running from life itself. A week later, still unable to stop thinking about her, he walked toward the park where he often saw families gathering on weekends. He didn't expect to see her again. He only wanted air, space, time to untangle the emotions he didn't understand. The sky was clear that day, one of those rare mornings when sunlight touched the world with a gentle warmth, not harshness. Children played on the swings while parents chatted under the shade of tall trees. Arham sat on a bench, trying to scribble half-formed thoughts in his notebook, when something at the edge of his vision made his heart drop. It was her. Ayla was sitting on the curb near the parking area, not in the park with the others. Her clothes looked a little older than before, washed many times, faded at the sleeves. Next to her sat 2 children, both around the ages of 5 and 8. Their hair was tousled, their shoes worn, and their small hands cupped with anticipation. Ayla carefully unwrapped a small, half-filled container of leftover rice and a few pieces of bread. She broke the food into portion and placed more in her children's hands than in her own. The kids smiled gratefully, eating quickly while she pretended she was full by nibbling at a tiny piece. Arm froze. The world around him blurred. The laughter of the children in the playground faded, and all he could see was this quiet, heartbreaking scene unfolding on a patch of concrete. No one else noticed. He realized instantly that the rejection he had felt wasn't personal, it was survival. She wasn't pushing him away. She was hiding a life that had grown too heavy for her to explain. She wasn't uninterested. She was afraid he might see the truth she had been trying to shield from the world. He watched as she wiped her children's mouths with the edge of her scarf, whispering something soft that made them smile brighter. She pulled them close, hugging them with fierce love as if they were her only source of strength, and maybe they were. The image struck him deeply. A mother giving what little she had without hesitation, sitting on hard pavement while the world walked past her without offering a second glance. Arham felt shame twist inside him. Not because of anything he had said or done, but because he had assumed rejection when the truth was far more painful. He stood slowly, his heart breaking for a woman who had learned to protect her children with quiet sacrifice. Even then, he didn't approach her immediately. He didn't want to intrude on a moment that was clearly sacred. Instead, he walked to a nearby stall, bought a warm meal, and returned with trembling hands, uncertain of how she would react. When she saw him approaching, Her entire body tensed the way someone tenses when life has only taught them to expect hardship. She looked like she was preparing to either apologize again or flee, but Arham simply placed the meal beside her without a word, stepped back, and gave her space. She blinked rapidly, her eyes filling with confusion and disbelief, as if she couldn't understand kindness offered without expectation. What happened next unfolded, slowly, gently, like a fragile flower opening after a long winter. When her children noticed the fresh food, they looked at their mother for permission. She hesitated, her throat tightening as she glanced at Arham, searching his face for judgment, pity, or mockery. Finding none, only quiet compassion, she nodded, and the children began to eat with joy that brought tears to her eyes. Arham didn't stay long. He walked away quietly, not wanting her to feel indebted or uncomfortable. But as he left, he saw her wiping tears from her cheeks with fingers that trembled from the kindness she hadn't expected. The next few days changed everything. Ayla began trusting him slowly, carefully, like someone stepping onto thin ice. She allowed herself to greet him when their paths crossed, allowed him to walk with her toward the bus stop, allowed him to help carry the groceries she bought with careful budgeting. Each day, pieces of her story unfolded not through words, but through the quiet way she held herself, through the exhaustion in her shoulders, through the determination in her eyes when she looked at her children. Arham learned that she was alone, raising 2 kids after her husband had left years ago. She worked part-time shifts at places that paid too little and expected too much. She skipped meals so her children wouldn't have to. She saved every rupee she could, not for herself but for their school fees. Life had made her strong, but it had also broken pieces of her spirit she hadn't allowed anyone to see. Arham, in turn, found himself changing. He began looking for jobs again, not for money alone, but because he wanted to be someone worthy of offering real help someday. He pushed himself to rebuild his life with determination he hadn't felt in months. He wanted to rise not to impress her, but because he wanted to stand beside her with dignity, not sympathy. Weeks passed, and what began as cautious glances slowly shifted into something deeper. She learned to trust him enough to smile freely. He learned to be patient enough to never rush her healing. The children grew fond of him, seeing him as someone who brought warmth without expecting anything in return. And then one evening, as the sun set quietly and the breeze carried the scent of street food from nearby stalls, something shifted between them. Ayla thanked him, not with words, but with a look that carried gratitude, hope, and the possibility of a future that no longer felt impossible. In that moment, Arham understood that love wasn't always loud or immediate. Sometimes it was built gently, through shared struggles, small acts of kindness, and silent promises. Months later, Arham got a stable job again. His life slowly regained structure, and he began saving with a purpose: to offer Ayla and her children the stability they deserved. He visited them regularly, helped with school assignments, carried groceries, and listened when Ayla needed someone to understand her unspoken fears. His love wasn't about rescuing her. It was about choosing her, choosing the children, choosing the life they could build together. And slowly, Ayla allowed herself to believe that she deserved happiness too. One quiet evening, he found her in the same park, where he'd first seen her feeding leftovers to her children. But this time, she wasn't sitting on the curb. She was on a bench, watching her children laugh and play freely, not burdened by hunger or worry. When she looked at him, she smiled with a softness that made the entire world pause. And he realized something profound. The rejection he once thought he faced had actually been a doorway to a deeper, more meaningful connection. It was the moment when life had redirected him towards something far more beautiful than he had imagined. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means more than you know. Before we close, here's a small request. Please comment below what part of the story moved you the most. Ayla and Arham's journey didn't begin with perfection. It began with struggle, misunderstanding, sacrifice, and courage, but it grew into something strong, something built on compassion, respect, and the belief that even in the darkest moments, kindness can rewrite destiny. And sometimes, all it takes is a moment, a meal, or a stranger's quiet compassion to change the direction of someone's entire life.